Well, welcome everyone to our weekly writing group meeting. As you all know, I'm Rob, and I work at Southern Utah University with the American Language and Culture program. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. I'm Janice Acosta, and I am an assistant professor of Spanish here at SUU2, Southern Utah University.
My name is Bicho Acevedo, and I'm assistant professor at the University of San Diego.
Aloha, my name is Nancy Tarafiti, and I'm an associate professor here at Brigham Young University in Hawaii.
So this week for our writing group, we're doing something special. We're not going to review each other's writing. Instead, we're sharing our TESOL presentation on developing feedback experience through long distance professional development writing groups, which is what we are. This is what we do. Every week we meet together online like this. So this is our normal thing. We're just doing something a little bit different this week. We decided that because our writing group was so helpful to us, we wanted to be able to share our success with other teachers and help them gain some of the benefits that we have gained. So our goal in this presentation is to help other teachers create their own online professional development or learning community. And so our presentation today is going to follow this outline. We're going to talk about why we formed our writing group, talk about group membership considerations, what's the purpose of your group, how do you schedule when you're going to meet with your group, what kind of technologies you might want to use, and then how does peer feedback work in your group? How do you talk to each other? What kind of mediums do you use? What kind of content? And then lastly, we'll finish up maybe with some tips and takeaways. So let's get started. How did our group get started?
I think it all started back in 2018 in the fall semester when Rob and I attended this learning community called Time Left to Write. And so we coincide in this workshop, and towards the end of the workshop, our librarian said something like, here's my experience in a writing group. And so at some point, one of the two said like, oh, that's something I would like to do. And the other said, I'll do it with you. And so basically it was just the two of us at the beginning. And then I kind of like forced Bicho to join us because Bicho and I attended grad school together back in 2012, something like that, in Chicago. And so we have always been trying to find more time and more opportunities to write, and kind of struggling because, you know, when you start a new job and then you are junior faculty, you don't have as many opportunities to write unless you kind of like purposely find that time. And so I remember I sent an email to Bicho saying, Bicho, we are now part of a writing group. I didn't even give her a chance to say no. And so I just say, we are part of this writing group, and I introduce myself and then ask them to introduce themselves. And that's how it all started. Basically at the beginning, it was the three of us. And then eventually Nancy also became part of the group. And that was because of Rob, right? Rob.
Yeah. In fact, before we get to how Nancy joined, Bicho shared this really good quote with us that I think kind of summarize why we felt we needed a writing group. Bicho, can you share this with us? Read it to us.
Yes, so writing is the work that gets done between teaching, office hours, faculty meetings, administration, email, family events, and all the other messy, sprawling demands of academic life. And I think that's very real.
Yeah, I think all of us, we just have so many demands that if we set aside this time each week for a writing group, we would feel some not only motivation, but maybe some positive pressure to do some writing. And that was dedicated time that nothing else could interrupt with. And I think it's been really helpful for us. So the three of us started off, we'll talk about it later, but Bicho even said, let's set up some rules for our group. You know, what are we going to do? And a few months later, I attended the TESOL conference in 2019. And Nancy was talking about some of her writing and the same kinds of challenges she was having. And I said, you know what? I've got this new writing group and it's been really helpful. And I said, why don't you give it a try? And Nancy, what were your thoughts there when I said that?
Well, I didn't have anything going on, so I jumped on it. I was like, yes, I would love to do that. And the great thing that Rob said is that that you guys met once a week, so it wasn't like really demanding, and that each person took a turn, which was even better. It wasn't like you had to do something every week for the meeting, but you got to help out, and then you get that help back in return. And so I remember Rob saying, well, I'll talk to the other members. And I was thinking, oh, please, I hope they like me and they'll let me join the group. And then Rob emailed me and said that I was in. So I was excited about that.
You know,
And
one of the things
yeah,
I really like about our group is that we bring a lot of different experiences to our group. You know, Bicho's from Spain and Nancy's from New Zealand and Junice's from Dominican Republic and I'm from Canada. And even though Junice and I are both at the same institution, we're in different departments. And now Bicho's in California and Nancy's in Hawaii. So I think that brings a lot of different ideas to the group. But we at least have a core understanding together. We're all linguists, we're all language educators. So we have some things that bring us together, but also some things that are different.
actually, that was one thing that I really liked too, is that everybody had that commonality in the field. We weren't so far removed and so far different. And that was another reason why I was really interested as well. And we all had the same goal of trying to publish.
Yeah, I think we all have this commonality, but we're not in the same field, the same specific area. And so it never feels like we are stepping on each other's worlds. I teach Spanish and I specialize on heritage speakers and particularly writing. Eunice?
I do sociolinguistics. I basically study language variation, focusing on Dominican Spanish, which is a very interesting variety of Spanish.
You know, and I'm interested a lot in English language pedagogy, especially in things about assessment. And even though Nancy and I are both English language teachers, she's got a different focus.
I'm interested in the writing aspect of second language teaching and teacher training. And I'm currently also teaching a peace linguistics class. So I'm interested in the expansion of linguistic into other areas, interdisciplinary courses. So yeah.
And so we mentioned that one purpose for our group was to give us an opportunity and that positive pressure to be writing and possibly publish. We also talked about just social connection, right? Junice and Bicho are grad school friends. Nancy and I are grad school friends. And meeting at TESOL or whatever conference once a year just wasn't enough. You know, we wanted to continue that kind of conversation. So our weekly meetings help us connect together. What were some of the other reasons why the group's been helpful for you guys?
I think just listening to, or not listening, but reading actually what other people are actually doing, you know, and just being able to learn about other frameworks and maybe eventually even just like using them for my own research or just like seeing that approach, you know, and using that to my own research. It doesn't have to be theory, but it can be probably just like, how did you approach this problem and how do you try to find, you know, an explanation for that? And maybe that eventually will also just like make me realize, oh, I might be able to use some of that too. So for me, that's been an important part of our group. It's just like not only learning about what you guys do, but also learning how to do my work, how to incorporate some of those ideas into my own work. I think that's been essential for me.
For me, the main point is having a routine, something that happens every week that demands time to read other people's work and also to prepare my own writing when it's my turn to share my writings with other people. And so having that constant, that routine, that rhythm is what for me is the most beneficial part of having this group.
For me, I've really enjoyed the reflective critique. We found out that we're really good at critiquing each other's writing, but it's not in an offensive way, actually. We really welcome that we're such good critiquers, and with our group, we don't spend lots of time justifying why we wrote things. We just look at what people have said, and then we take it back to our own writing styles and decide what sort of revisions we make. I like that the critique is from colleagues who are also at that higher academic level. And so, yeah, and that has been so helpful. Things that I haven't even considered or thought about, which is great, which is another reason why I like that we don't all focus on the same specific thing in the field. So that I really like that part of it.
And I like that we can give each other ideas. You know, Bicha was writing about Spanish Language Writing Center on her campus, and we were able to suggest, oh, have you take a look at this article, or what kind of journals? And I think that we do give each other good ideas, but as Nancy has said, we're learning how to be good peer reviewers. We all teach our students to do this, but now that we're getting it, I think we're getting better at how to teach writing to our students because we're more empathetic to that process, because we understand what it's like to give feedback and get feedback on a regular basis.
I think we can also deal with rejection better now. We have kind of like learned how to do that too, because, you know, the other members of the group also kind of like help us process how, you know, how it's not maybe the whole paper. Why don't you focus on this part of the paper? And that might be not the best journal to publish the paper. So just like dealing with rejection, which might be for some of us an important part of it, it's also something that it's been very useful for me. I submitted a paper, it was rejected. I thought it was great. I actually was able to see like how it evolved and how better it was after the writing group actually looked at it and gave me feedback, but it got rejected like totally. But then we went back to it, and I can see now things that I didn't see before. And it's not like the paper it's terrible. It's basically that I have to focus on some things, and the members of the group just like made me see how I can improve that in a better way, in a more effective way, and submit it to a different journal, different place.
One thing I do like about our group is that it helps us move along our writing. Like we have been given a day, so we have a good 3 or 4 weeks to make sure that we've come up with something. And then I actually feel a little bit accomplished after submitting that and having people critique it. And now I get so excited that I want to move along to the next part. We can always make goals to say, this year I want to publish this and this. And you can, and before you realize that the year's come and gone and you haven't done anything. This group helps us move that along. And at the end, whenever we finish our turn, I love that we say what we're going to work on next. So we're held accountable. We're not just saying it in our head, this is what we want to achieve. We've actually said it out loud to colleagues who then keep us on track. So I love that the group has that goal and purpose for us to keep moving ahead. Even if we don't have anything we're working on. I think Bicho, one time she said, actually, I've got something else that I'm thinking about. And this group helped to move that along. So, you know, we're keeping each other accountable.
Yeah, the positive pressure, very helpful.
We're going to get to that moment. I just wanted to show our little timeline just to sort of review. So we started this group based on a workshop we did on our campus. We invited our friends to join with us. And then really what we've been doing over these past almost 3 years now is trying to figure out what's the right schedule for us. What are the right technologies and what's the right processes that we're going to use in our group? And Nancy started talking about that, but tell me more about that. How did we decide what processes and technologies and tools to use?
We were an online group before online was a thing, right? In 2018. So we were kind of trendy since 2018 because we're online since the very beginning. So we decided to use, was it Google Hangouts at the beginning?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, I think so.
For us,
and I think once the pandemic hit and we all got access to Zoom, we found that it provided maybe a little more stable and clear pictures. But so we found that Zoom is one of the technologies we like to use. It's great for face-to-face and audio and video, But that's not the only technology we use. What do we use besides that?
We also use Google Docs, right? So we share our documents at least a couple of days in advance before our meeting. So the other members of the group have also the chance to take a look at the text and basically just give us feedback. If we have then questions, we just talk about things, we discuss different points of the texts. And we have eventually evolved from, I think it was 15 pages, more or less, like the whole article, to like between 3 and 5, which is more manageable considering our schedules and all the things we have to do. So it's like between 3 and 5 pages that we share on Google Doc with the rest of the group every week, like a few days in advance before the meeting.
I think too, we submit our writing to be reviewed, and then we just wait. Like nobody really gets, because everyone manages to give some feedback before we actually meet, which I like. You know, there's no pressure like you haven't replied or haven't said anything yet. We just know that by the time our meeting is, there is some feedback. And one thing I do like is looking what other people have comments have said and thinking about those comments and then actually building on those as well. And we all bring really good expertise advice from the different fields and our academic experience. And yeah, it's worked well. The Google Docs worked well. All our technologies have worked well. One thing I would say for people who are trying to create a group is to make sure you have a manageable number of people. I think if we had too many, it would be quite a while before I actually was to submit anything. And we all just really work well together. I think that is something to consider. I don't know how you do that, because I didn't know anybody except for Rob before this group got together, but we all seem to work really well. There's that connection. I knew Rob knew Janaisi knew Bicho, and so yeah.
Yeah, Bicho, could you talk to that a little bit? The idea that we all take turns each week. How does that work?
So usually at the beginning of a semester, we decide by email who's going to be the first ones, who's going to be the turn, who's going to have the first turn. Whoever has something written during the break, or whoever has an earlier deadline for something, volunteers to be the first one. And once we meet for that one time, we create a little schedule of who is going to be next and next and next. Something we also do, as Nancy has already mentioned, is at the end of every meeting, the person whose turn was that day explains what he or she will do for the next step after that document that we saw, that part of a document that we saw. And also whoever is next the week after also explains what he or she will be writing about. So we all have a little idea of what kind of text is coming before we get it for the next meeting, in order to review it for the next meeting. And then sometimes we have a vacation or holidays or Christmas time or crazy finals weeks. We all have different schedules in our schools. So we all have finals different weeks, but we still, so usually at the end of the semester, we tend to stop and then take it over again whenever we decide to continue for the next semester. We try during the summer sometimes, it doesn't always work because we are differently busy. So it's usually during the school semester that we work, I would say.
And we are in different parts of the world during the summertime usually. So like in different continents, all of us. So it's kind of difficult to just coincide on a time and day to meet.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that we've been doing is just like we started with the Google Doc as, you know, the thing we use to share the documents, but we've been kind of like trying different other technology to actually meet. And so I think that's important for a writing group. You have to try different things and see what works for you, because what might work for us might not work for other people. But just like you get to the point where you decide, yeah, this is the thing that works for us, as we did with with Zoom once we all got access to it. So it depends on, like, accessibility from the members of the group. It depends on many things, but trying different technologies might help just find the right one for the group.
Oh, something else, sorry, that I wanted to add regarding when we take turns. Sometimes professional conferences influence our schedule. And so every now and then we have to skip a meeting and somebody else takes over. But since it's only 4, one of the advantages of being only 4 is that it's very easy to communicate among us and to somebody, substituting somebody else very easily.
But the advantage of being 4 is that you have to go at least once a month. So we're constantly writing, and it's not too far from when it's going to be your turn again. So again, the positive pressure. From a teacher's perspective, one of the things I've really appreciated about our peer review is that I'm learning how to give better feedback. Sometimes as a language teacher, I'm always focusing on sentence level issues. Oh, are you missing a pronoun? Or did you not do this right? Or, oh, I think it would sound better if you drop this word or replace this word. But I'm also learning to get better global feedback, really trying to imagine the big picture. What are you trying to communicate as a writer? Do I understand your meaning? Or where could things be clearer? So sometimes we give both encouraging as well as critical feedback, right? Sometimes like, I really like what you've done here. I can really follow this argument very well. Or you've really explained this well. And other times we might say, I'm confused. I don't know what you're saying here. Or I can't interpret this table accurately. Maybe you need a different label or a better explanation. And so I've learned to become a better teacher because of our writing group.
I think too, Rob, one thing I like about our meeting is that I'm learning things that I didn't know before. I didn't know anything about heritage learners, actually. And so we're growing in knowledge from what we learn from each other. And I've really enjoyed that part of even with Janaisi, just with Spanish speakers and what they do. I had no idea about that. So that is just a natural bonus, I think, as part of the group, is that you learn this other knowledge that you can always take into your classroom in some way. So I really appreciate that. Another thing too is that just recently Bicho had a really long piece of passage to read, and we actually split it up amongst the group. So she still got some good feedback. And when you create your group, you can decide how many pages is enough, how you're going to work it out, what time frame. Like we never take longer than an hour. And sometimes if the feedback is great and there's no questions from the person who submitted the writing, we can be done in half an hour. So it makes the person who's submitting the writing work hard, everybody else who's given their feedback be productive. And so it's really not a waste of time. It's actually a really good productive use of our time.
Mm-hmm.
I think a practical application for me too has been the fact that I'm trying to be a better teacher too, right? Of course. And so I want to give better feedback to my own students. And so an idea that I've kind of like gotten from this writing group is basically the positive feedback that Rob mentioned, the encouraging feedback, which I didn't used to do. Is more like, all of these things are wrong, basically. But then at some point, Bicho started working on a research, and she said like, oh, there's this that is not right, but then there's all of other these things that are actually great. Why don't we talk about them? Like, why you usually don't talk about the positive things.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we kind of like organically started to give encouraging feedback. And that's something that I have also tried to apply to my own feedback in my classroom. So that's something that it's been very, very useful for me in my teaching, aside from, the writing group.
Another thing I applied from this group to my teaching, or to my grading, more like it, is that I don't have to pay attention to grammar mistakes, to local aspects of writing. from the beginning, but rather start with the global aspects of writing. Start with whether it makes sense, whether if it's well organized or not, and then maybe some grammar points. And I think that has happened. This group has had an influence in me doing that. Maybe because we had very long texts at the beginning, and so we couldn't always pay attention to the little details.
One of the things I think it might be helpful to talk about, we've talked about how the writing group has helped our teaching and our grading. How has the writing group helped you become a better writer?
I'll go first on that one. I think it's helped me organize my writing into chunks that are logical when trying to publish an article. And I look at everybody else's writing and I actually go, oh, I really like the way that they've said that. I really like the way that they've organized that. And I actually incorporate that into my writing. And so I think to become a good writer, you have to be reading lots of good pieces of writing. And that's what this does for us every week. And I'm actually, I feel bolstered up in my scholarship with this group because I feel like everyone's, cheering me on and wanting me to do well too. So I think that it's helped me promote my writing, do better, and move it forward.
I think for me has been especially accountability, but more than that, finding my own writing style, which I didn't have before, and that's for me. It's been essential for me because I was trying to follow all of these advices, which are great for people, like either write 1 hour every day or just have to do this and that. And it's never worked for me for one reason or another. And so with this group, I know that my turn is this day, and that makes me accountable. I have to write for that day, but at the same time, I can now use my own writing style, which is different from other writing styles. And at the same time, I'm applying things here and I'm accountable. I write for the day I have to write, but at the same time, I'm not pressed to the point that I am completely blocked, and I can't write. So I do write. What I do basically is just like think night and day about my writing, and after that I just sit down and write. That's what works for me. I have tried many other styles that never work for me, but I know that by certain date I need to have something done. And now I found my own writing style, the one that works for me, and I'm able to produce, I wouldn't say way more, but I'm able to produce something that I'm happy with, and that's been very important for me.
I would think I've learned not to be afraid of writing. If it's not perfect, if it's not finished, it's fine. It's ready to be commented upon. And so it's good to share with people that will give me good feedback at any stage of my writing process. I think it has helped me to organize my thoughts better and to try to frame my thoughts differently. Like in my the last piece that you guys reviewed for me, actually calling the framework that I was not making it so obvious in my text was something easy to do and very logical, and I needed someone to show it to me because I wasn't seeing it before. So I thought that was very good. And also, Nancy, you shared with us early on like a structure, an article structure. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So my professor for my PhD, his name is John Bitchner, and he created he actually was at the end of one of his books that he wrote, and he created a brief outline, stages of how to publish scholarship. And and it was really good because I think I was trying to write journal articles or anything from my PhD research, and I just didn't know how to piece it out. And I think that's one thing that people struggle with is to take their PhD research apart and then piece it out into different parts. And And he had, I think he has like 3 stages here. The first stage is selecting the focus of the article. And what I did there is I just took one of my research questions, just one, and then selecting an appropriate journal was stage 2. So you do a little bit of research about the journal that you want to publish in. So you find out what the word count is, maybe read a couple of articles in there to see if your one really fits there. And then stage 3 is the drafting part. And he looks at drafting an initial abstract, and then the findings, and then the methodology, and then the lit review and discussion at the end there. And I found his outline or his guideline of how to do a journal article was really, really helpful. And other groups, you may find something that's helpful too, but I shared those stages with everybody else in the group, and I think everybody found it really helpful, and they've used it for what they needed to.
Mhm.
And so that was good to just help move us along as well to progress. And then we've all sort of, when we submit writing, we sort of know where you're at and how everyone's doing. And I like the way that he had you write an abstract first, so you really know what the overall effect of your article is, and then breaks it up into findings, methodology, and then the lit review. And it's interesting because I think I've done this for a couple of my articles now. And when I got to the lit review, I could see everyone's like, oh, those are old lit, you know, you need some more modern one. I kind of figured that out as I was writing, but it was good to get that confirmed when it came back in the critique. So it to me, it just felt like a nice full picture. And yeah, but I think that was good to share, and everyone just sort of follows that if they have nothing, no other structure to go by. So yeah.
But then we also had some text like Rob's. Sometimes it's just a brainstorm, a list of ideas, right, Rob?
Yeah, so, you know, there would be times I'd be working on something and I'd read some things and here's what I'm thinking about doing, and I could get feedback from you on, does this seem interesting? Does this seem worthwhile to pursue? And that really helped me move forward, push myself to actually put things down into text because I knew you were expecting something to read the next time. And the group also helped me then when I put articles out there, and one of my articles came back and one of the reviewers was quite harsh to the article. And I just thought, I'm just going to give up on this article. I guess it's not what they want. But the group really encouraged me, like, no, you wrote something. It makes sense. It's interesting, you know, push back. And so the group kind of helped me learn how to respond to reviewers, that I could be respectful of the reviewers' comments, but I could also, kind of like Junice said, take ownership. This is my voice. This is what I want to say. And, you know, the editor took my, respected my decision. I responded to the reviewer, but I didn't change everything that the reviewer said. And the editor respected that. And so I think if I hadn't had the writing group, I would have just given up on that paper, but I got it published. So I really appreciate the group's kind of moral support there to build me up as a writer, to know that I know what I want to say and I need to incorporate feedback from others, but I can't let them control my paper.
And just taking on to that, Rob, I want to also say that the group does give me confidence in my writing, gives me confidence in submitting things. And so that's, I think, a really positive aspect of a writing group is just to have someone in your corner cheering you on to help build your confidence so that you can take on feedback, like Rob said, and still be willing to move forward in your writing. I think if you do it on your own, you can easily be discouraged, thinking you don't have anything to offer or nobody's going to like my writing. But in a group situation like this, where you know each other and you're here to support each other, it's a very different feel. So I'm really grateful for that.
Well, you know, we're getting near the end of our meeting here. What are maybe your key takeaways or your most important ideas that you want to share with those who want to make their own writing groups?
I will say, give it a try. Start with something basic. Create rules along the way. Try different kinds of technologies. See which one works best. And if the members of the group are in different time zones, figure out a moment to meet when it works for everybody, and not just with their classes and their academic obligations, but keep in mind people's family obligations, personal obligations for the schedule. Give it a try, and it will get better.
Yeah, flexibility is key. We are, hold accountable for this, but at the same time, if I can't do the feedback this week, it's okay. So you gotta be flexible because life happens and many things. We're all busy, but we are still willing to do the just give feedback to other people. I think that an important thing is that you need to be open to receiving feedback, because otherwise it'll be really hard on you every time it's your turn. So you need to be open to receiving that. And of course, we all like kind of organically have been learning how to be better at giving feedback. And you present it in a different way, probably more positive now than negative. But at the same time, I think we're all open to receiving feedback, whatever feedback we get, either it's whether it's encouraging or not. We kind of know what we're going to receive. Like the point of all of this is to be better at writing and to actually have better papers to publish. So I think we go to, if you're going to be part of a writing group, you should probably be just willing to receiving any type of feedback you can. And of course, as I said, organically, just a group develops their own, ways of giving better feedback. But that's something I think it's very important. Just be open to receiving any feedback.
I think my tip would be find a good group of people that you can trust and that you respect. And I like the Bicho said, create your rules as you go along, and just make sure everybody's willing to do their part. I think the actual creation of a group is probably the most challenging. I feel so lucky that I fell into this group that was already established and they took me in. But that's probably my biggest tips and takeaway is find a group that you trust, be respectful of each other, and create your rules from the get-go so that everybody's on the same page.
I think one of the things I might share is that it's something I always tell my TESOL students is that teaching can be a very isolating profession. You're in your classroom on your own. And when you've been used to being in the classroom with other pre-teachers, you feel like you've got this community, and then you go off, you get a job, and suddenly you're maybe kind of on your own, especially depending on if you're teaching in a foreign country and there's not other people that are your kind of peers. So I think although our group is very focused on our writing and it works really well for us, other people might choose to use a group like ours for social connection. When we think about the TESOL standards for teachers, one of the things that might be helpful is just getting together to have a community and talk about teaching issues together. And a group like this could function in that way as well. Before we go, I have another quote here that Bicho found for us. Bicho, would you read this one and tell us what you think it means and why it's important?
Whether large or small, what nearly all successful writing groups have in common is a shared sense of generosity, pleasure, and even fun. And I think this quote really, it's really applicable to us because everybody's generous with their time, reviewing each other's work. Meetings are fun, even though we are critiquing each other. There's nothing negative about it. And I think we have that in common, and we create this small community among us, I think. One thing that has not been mentioned yet is the fact that one of our unwritten rules, I guess, is that we don't spend too much time talking about our daily life, our problems, or anything like that. And that's how we can keep the meetings short, like Nancy mentioned before, right? But it's also, meetings are positive, are as the quote says, fun. There's fun moments in our meetings, definitely.
So we can see our accomplishments, right? The things we achieve, but at the same time, like the focus of our group is actually just giving feedback and just talking about our writing, and that's an important part.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that generosity is a really important part of our group. We're not here to tear each other down or to show who knows more than the other person, which sometimes can happen, as we all know, in academic communities. But we're really here to build each other up, prepare each other so that we can go out and do great things with our writing. If anyone has any questions for us, I'm just going to pull up just a moment here, our email contact information so that if anyone wants to contact us, they can. Let me just do that a second here. And while I do that, if anyone wants to share any other final thoughts, please go ahead.
Good luck with creating your groups. We hope to hear how everybody goes with that.
Mhm.
And as we just say, just, you know, just give it a try. I think it's important. You'll find your own rhythm and your own way of doing things, the ways that actually work for you.
So go ahead.
Sorry, just my last thought. Share with each other in your meetings how you feel about the meeting and how what the writing group is giving you. I think it's also important to share it with your writing group partners.
Okay, so before we go, whose turn is it next week?
It's actually your turn, Rob.
Okay. All right, thanks everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
See you next week.
Thank you.